Psalm 55. David prays morning, noon, and night. He seeks protection and help against his enemies. To the chief musician on Neginoth, Maschil, a psalm of David. Give ear to my prayer, O God, and hide not thyself from my supplication. Attend unto me and hear me. I mourn in my complaint and make a noise because of the voice of the enemy, because of the oppression of the wicked. For they cast iniquity upon me, and in wrath they hate me. My heart is sore pained within me, and the terrors of death are fallen upon me. Fearfulness and trembling are come upon me, and horror hath overwhelmed me. And I said, Oh, that I had wings like a dove, for then would I fly away and be at rest. Lo, then would I wander far off and remain in the wilderness. Selah. I would hasten my escape from the windy storm and tempest. Destroy, O Lord, and divide their tongues, for I have seen violence and strife in the city. Day and night they go about it, upon the walls thereof. Mischief also and sorrow are in the midst of it. Wickedness is in the midst thereof. Deceit and guile depart not from her streets. For it was not an enemy that reproached me. Then I could have borne it. Neither was it he that hated me that did magnify himself against me. Then I would have hid myself from him. But it was thou, a man mine equal, my guide, and mine acquaintance. We took sweet counsel together, and walked unto the house of God in company. Let death seize upon them, and let them go down quick into hell, for wickedness is in their dwellings and among them. As for me, I will call upon God, and the Lord shall save me. Evening and morning, and at noon will I pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. He hath delivered my soul in peace from the battle that was against me, for there were many with me. God shall hear and afflict them, even he that abideth of old, Selah, because they have no changes. Therefore they fear not God. He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. He shall never suffer the righteous to be moved. But thou, O God, shalt bring them down into the pit of destruction. Bloody and deceitful men shall not live out half their days, but I will trust in thee. Interesting. It's still very much like what David is known for in his Psalms, calling down judgment upon his enemies, but I think it is a little bit more mellow in it. But I like the but it was thou, a man mine equal. Who is the man? Now this is likely, it gives me the feeling that it was written during the rebellion of Absalom, and could be referring directly to Ahithophel, because it says we took sweet counsel together. And Ahithophel was David's top advisor. So it's an interesting thing, and he describes Jerusalem as being overrun with wickedness as he looks in on it. And so it kind of gives me the impression that's when it was written. But before I say anything else, this one does have some Joseph Smith translations. Well, the Joseph Smith translation is this is an inspired translation of the Bible, or correction, done by Joseph Smith to restore those portions that had been lost over the years. So let us look at these corrections of Joseph Smith. There are 5 of them. Let us reread the King James and then the Joseph Smith translation. So first, verse 6. And I said, Oh, that I had wings like a dove, for then would I fly away and be at rest. Joseph Smith alters this to just, for then I would fly away. It's a correction of grammar, nothing serious, nothing profound. Verse 12, though. For it was not an enemy that reproached me, then I could have borne it. Neither was it he that hated me, that did magnify himself against me. Then I would have hid myself from him. Joseph Smith just kind of reorders this. Says, for it was not an enemy that reproached me, neither he that hated me that did magnify himself against me. If so, then I could have borne it. I would have hidden myself from him. So it doesn't really change the meaning, but it does kind of unify the meaning. As it stood, he could have borne it if it was an enemy, and he could have hid from those who hated it. But if it's an enemy who hates you, he could wear it because he could hide from him. He could retreat from his enemies. He doesn't need to. Well, it's not exactly retreat from. He doesn't need to go out and confront them directly. But when it's somebody in your own house, on your own home, a close friend, it's hard to avoid them. Anyways, continuing, verse 13 in the King James says, "But it was thou, a man of mine equal, my guide and mine acquaintance." And Joseph Smith just changes this to, "But it was a man of mine equal, mine guide and mine acquaintance." So it doesn't have that direct accusation. Again, not a profound change in meaning, but it actually mellows it out a little bit more. And I like that. Verse 20. "He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant." So that's the King James. Joseph Smith has here, "They have put forth their hand against such as be at peace with them. They have broken the Lord's covenant." So it's not their covenant. They're not going back on any treaty that they signed, but they are violating the laws of God, which is worse. But it's also pluralized. So now we have the man of mine acquaintance and mine equal, probably Ahithophel, and then they have put forth their hand. So probably a reference to Absalom's rebellion. And then we have verse 21. "The words of his mouth are smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords." Nice little metaphors, right? Joseph Smith corrects this. "The words of their mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in their heart. Their words were softer than oil, yet they have drawn swords." Again, making me think this is a reference to the rebellion of Absalom, because it's no longer a metaphor. The alteration there is that, yes, their words are like butter. That's still a metaphor, that they speak well. But while they're speaking, they have their swords drawn, ready for fighting. Literally, not a metaphor. So this gives me the impression that David is asking for deliverance from the men that follow Absalom. So this is talking about Absalom's rebellion against him. It's a nice little psalm with those corrections. That connection to Absalom is more clear.